Right, so we're diving deep today
Mm-hmm.
into a matchup that has everyone on the edge of their seats.
Yeah.
Tennessee versus Florida, SEC championship on the line.
Absolutely huge game.
And, I got to say, looking at the betting lines, like a lot of our listeners are probably thinking,
Yeah.
is this going to be one of those games that just explodes over the total?
Right.
Or are we going to be biting our nails watching a defensive slugfest under?
It's a great question. And honestly, it's tough to say for sure. That's why we're here, to break it down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've been poring over previews and predictions from FanDuel Research, NBC Sports, even CBS Sports.
Oh, yeah. And U.S. betting, too.
Right, U.S. betting. And the interesting thing is they don't all agree on this over-under.
Nope, not at all. You've got some pretty strong arguments for both sides.
Okay, so let's start with the over-under then. Where do things stand with the predictions?
Well, FanDuel Research, they're coming in strong for the under, currently sitting at 143.5 points. And their reasoning is pretty interesting. They point out that both regular season games between these teams actually finished under that total.
Oh, wow. So there's already some history there.
Exactly. And then you got to factor in Tennessee's defense. They're ranked third nationally in adjusted defensive efficiency.
Which basically means they make it really hard to score.
You got it. They're stingy on defense, especially when you adjust for the strength of their opponents.
Tough matchup.
And then on top of that, Tennessee plays at one of the slowest paces in the country, like 93rd percentile slow.
So fewer possessions, fewer chances to score.
Exactly. Fewer possessions overall, which naturally can keep those scores down.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So FanDuel is leaning heavily on the under.
Yeah. And one more thing they highlight is Florida's three-point shooting against Tennessee specifically. In those two regular season games, Florida shot a combined 21.3% from three-point range.
Oof, that's rough.
Yeah, not great. Makes you wonder if they can find their stroke from deep in this one.
Definitely something to watch. Okay, so we've got FanDuel in the under camp. What about the other sources?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. NBC Sports Bet. Their model actually recommends the over.
Oh, wow. So we've got a complete split already.
Right. It's set a tiny bit lower at 142.5, but still a totally different direction from FanDuel.
So what's their rationale for going over?
That's a good question, and unfortunately, they don't go into super deep detail on their reasoning. They mostly point to their model's calculations.
Interesting. But it does show that there's another side to this coin.
Oh, absolutely. And then you've got CBS Sports chiming in with their sports line model.
Okay, what do they say?
They're leaning towards the over as well, projecting a combined score around 148.
All right, so more points. So we've got FanDuel on the under, but NBC and CBS leaning towards the over.
Yeah, pretty much. It's almost like they're looking at two different games.
Which tells you it's not going to be an easy call.
Not at all. A lot of factors at play here.
All right, so let's dig into some of those factors then. We talked about Tennessee's defense, but what exactly makes them so good?
Right, so that adjusted defensive efficiency stat we mentioned, it's not just a random number.
Yeah.
It really reflects how consistently they disrupt opposing offenses and make it difficult to get easy buckets.
So not just about raw talent, but like a system that works.
Exactly. They're really good at forcing teams to take tough, contested shots.
Gotcha. And we mentioned their slow pace, too.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge factor. By controlling the tempo, they limit the overall number of possessions in the game, which naturally keeps the scoring down, regardless of who they're playing.
Interesting. So even if Florida's offense is hot, that slow pace could still work in Tennessee's favor.
Absolutely. It limits everyone's opportunities to score, even their own.
Smart strategy. But on the other hand, Florida just dropped 104 points on Alabama in the semifinals.
Right. That's an offensive explosion. And Alabama isn't exactly a slouch on defense.
So that's got to give some credence to the over.
Yeah.
Right.
It definitely suggests they have the firepower to push the score up, no doubt.
So what's clicking for them offensively?
Well, they're ranked 5th nationally in offensive efficiency, so they're clearly doing a lot of things right.
And they love the three-pointer. Right.
Oh, yeah. Huge fans of the three ball. Their shot distribution puts them in the 79th percentile for three-point attempts.
So that's a potential area where they could really rack up points if they're hitting.
Absolutely. If they get hot from deep, watch out.
But hold on. Even in that 104-point game against Alabama, their defense was still impressive.
True. Even while putting up all those points, they held Alabama, who are a top 3 offensive team, to under 42% shooting from the field and just 31% from 3.
So their defense is no joke either.
Not at all. It might get overshadowed by their offensive fireworks sometimes, but their defense is a big part of their success too.
That makes this even more interesting then. So it's not just about whether Florida can score, but also whether Tennessee can slow them down.
Exactly. And that's where FanDuel's focus on Florida's front court defense comes in. They highlighted guys like Alex Condon, Ruben Chinielu, and Thomas Ho.
Right. And they mentioned these DBPR ratings.
Yeah, defensive Bayesian performance ratings. It's a fancy way of measuring a player's overall impact on defense.
These guys have impressive ratings, right?
Very impressive. It suggests they're highly effective at disrupting opponents, rebounding, protecting the rim, the whole package.
Interesting. So even if Tennessee tries to attack the basket, they're going to have their work cut out for them.
Big time. Florida's front court is not going to make it easy for them.
So we know Tennessee likes to dunk and shoot threes on offense. How does that play into Florida's strengths?
Well, that's the clash of styles we're going to be watching. Tennessee wants those high percentage looks at the rim, but Florida is built to protect the paint.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And Tennessee also loves to space the floor with shooters. How does Florida match up there?
Again, it comes down to their perimeter defense. Can they close out effectively on Tennessee's shooters? Prevent them from getting those open looks?
So basically, can Florida disrupt what Tennessee wants to do on offense?
Exactly. And on the flip side, can Tennessee's defense, which is so good at limiting threes, slow down a Florida team that loves to shoot them?
A lot of questions, not a lot of easy answers.
Nope, but that's what makes this game so exciting to break down.
All right, so we've looked at the team matchups, the strengths and weaknesses. What about betting trends? Any clues there?
NBC Sports mentioned that the over has hit in Florida's last 6 games.
Wow, that's a pretty solid streak.
It is. Makes you think maybe they're just in a groove offensively.
But on the other hand, FanDuel pointed out that the under has hit in both previous matchups between these two teams this season.
Right, so you've got conflicting signals again.
Florida's recent trend says over, but their history against Tennessee says under.
Exactly. It's like a coin toss, honestly.
It's going to come down to which trend holds more weight in this specific matchup.
You got it. Which is tough to predict, of course.
And then there's the individual players who can always swing things.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You got to factor in the star power.
Well, FanDuel was really high on Walter Clayton Jr. for Florida.
Ah, yeah, Clayton. The guy's been on fire lately, averaging over 21 points in his last 4 games.
And they think he could have another big game here, especially from three-point range.
He's been draining threes like it's nothing. Plus, FanDuel pointed out that he's got a height advantage over Tennessee's Zakai Zeigler.
Interesting. So a potential mismatch there.
Potentially. And they also mentioned that Tennessee allows the most 3-point attempts per 40 minutes to SEC shooting guards. So Clayton might get plenty of looks from deep.
That could be huge for the over if he stays hot.
Absolutely. But it's not just Clayton. Elijah Martin has also been putting up good numbers for Florida.
Right. He had a great semifinal game, too.
Yeah, he's definitely a threat.
And for Tennessee, obviously, Zakai Zeigler is their engine on offense.
Oh, yeah. Zeigler's a baller. He can score in bunches, create for others.
And FanDuel mentioned Chaz Lanier, too, their leading scorer for the season.
Lanier's a sniper from 3-point range, shoots over 40%. He can definitely light it up.
So both teams have guys who can get buckets.
No doubt. But FanDuel also pointed out that Igor Milicic Jr., another key player for Tennessee, has been in a bit of a slump lately.
Oh, interesting. So maybe a little concern there for Tennessee fans.
Potentially. If Milicic can't find his rhythm, it could hurt their overall scoring output.
All right, so before we wrap up, let's revisit those regular season games again. Those are pretty low-scoring affairs.
Yeah, they were. The first one was a blowout win for Florida, 73-43, but Tennessee shot terribly.
And then Tennessee won the second one, 64-44, with Florida struggling to score.
Exactly. It's almost like each team figured out the other's offense in one of those games.
And both games went well under the total, right?
Oh, yeah, by a significant margin.
So that has to factor into the equation here.
For sure. It shows that these teams know how to defend each other. The question is, will we see another defensive battle in this championship game?
Right, or can one of these offenses break through and push the score higher?
That's the million-dollar question.
And we can't forget the context of this game either. SEC championship, massive implications for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, the stakes are high. Florida's coach even mentioned a potential #1 seed being on the line for them.
Wow, so a lot riding on this game.
Absolutely. And in these high-pressure situations, you often see teams clamp down even harder on defense.
So that could favor the under, right?
It could. The margin for error is so small that teams tend to prioritize getting stops and preventing easy baskets.
Makes sense. But then again, both teams have the talent to score in bunches, too.
True. So it's a real tug-of-war between those factors.
So where do we land on this whole over-under debate? It feels like we've gone back and forth a dozen times.
We have, and that's honestly the best reflection of this game. There are strong arguments for both sides.
Tennessee's defense and their slow pace definitely point towards the under.
And the fact that both previous games went under adds to that argument.
But then you have Florida's recent offensive surge, those high-scoring games, and some models predicting the over.
Right. And you can't ignore the individual talent on both sides.
It feels like it's going to come down to which team can impose their will on the game.
I think you nailed it. Will Tennessee's defense and tempo control dictate the game? Or will Florida's offense find a way to break through?
It's a fascinating question, and it's one that even the experts can't agree on.
Yeah, the models and predictions are split, which just shows how unpredictable this matchup is.
And that's what makes it so exciting. So for our listeners out there, what do you think? After hearing all this, which side are you leaning towards?
Yeah, what elements stand out to you? The defense versus offense battle, the betting trends, those regular season games?
It's a tough one, but hopefully this deep dive has given you some food for thought as you get ready to watch this huge SEC championship game. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.